In my nursing career, I've moved from an old city hospital, a piece of history from the 1930s, to a brand new medical center equipped with the latest technology. While the new facility promises enhanced patient care with its advanced equipment, the old hospital has its own unique charm. Despite its being very old, the hospital had a distinct personality. It held countless stories within its walls and came alive in a unique way as night fell. The friendly daytime corridors transformed, casting long shadows, and a chill seemed to fill the air, enough to send shivers down the spine of even the most seasoned staff. The old hospital had a way of making you feel its history. Every creak and whisper seemed to tell a tale, especially during the dark hours. It's been a fascinating transition from the eerie charm of the old city hospital to the modern, bright promise of our state-of-the-art medical center. Late one evening, close to 9:30, I found myself on the 4th floor of the hospital. This floor was divided into two wings, the east and the west. It had been 2 weeks since the east wing had been closed down, and since then, a deathly silence had settled over it. My duty that night involved transporting a patient from the bustling west wing. While moving through the familiar corridors, I noticed a huddle of my fellow nurses and aides. These were the individuals who used to work in the now deserted East Wing. Their faces were pale, devoid of color, and their expressions were far from the usual cheerful demeanor I was used to. This change was alarming, and curiosity piqued. I found myself drawn to find out what had caused such fear in their eyes. I moved closer to them. They began to tell a story that was hard to believe. They had wandered into the empty East Wing, maybe because they missed it or needed to say goodbye. The East Wing was quiet and lonely, a shell of what it used to be. In that heavy silence, they heard it. A phone ringing at the empty nurses' station. Surprised, one of the nurses quickly reached over the counter and picked up the phone. "Hello, this is Madison, a nurse from the West Wing. May I know who's calling?"
I don't know. Where am I?
"This is Trinity Care Hospital. Do you need help?"
I think so.
"Hello? Hello?" Then the line went dead. The conversation was short, the woman's responses vague, her voice laced with confusion. When the call ended abruptly, the nurse looked at the phone screen to see where it had come from. The blood drained from her face as she read the room number. The room directly next to the nurse's station. A room that was as empty as the rest of the wing. The nurses and aides bolted from the East Wing, their steps echoing in the empty corridors, their hearts pounding in their chests. They reached the West Wing just as I was stepping off the elevator, their faces ghostly white in the harsh fluorescent light. From that night onwards, the East Wing took on an even more sinister aspect. It wasn't just old and abandoned anymore. It was a place where the impossible happened, and nobody should have been there. I avoided that wing for the rest of my time there. The story of the impossible phone call forever etched in my mind. After all, hospitals are places of life and death, beginnings and endings. And when it comes to the old city hospital, especially its East Wing, it seems some of its past occupants have not yet let go. Their stories echoing in the silent corridors, their presence felt in the cold, lifeless rooms. So if you ever find yourself in an old, abandoned hospital wing, be careful. You never know who might reach out from the other side. I'm a night watchman at a sprawling shipping and receiving facility on the outskirts of town. The complex, massive, and somewhat intimidating facility was once a military base. During World War II, it served as a munitions factory and storage depot. The building carries a heavy history. Its weathered bricks and grimy windows are silent witnesses to a time fraught with fear and uncertainty. The facility is an intricate maze of warehouses, shipping yards, and countless corridors. My partner and I are often the sole inhabitants during the graveyard shift. My partner, bless his heart, has a knack for disappearing, off on his rounds, which, more often than not, turn into naps in some quiet corner of the facility. I never really minded. There was something oddly comforting about the solitude, the steady hum of machinery, and the echo of my own footsteps through the empty halls. Our office sits in a unique spot, wedged between the main entrance and the magnetically sealed inner doors. Encased in windows, we have a panoramic view of the employee parking lot on one side, and the main corridor of the facility on the other. It's a silent sentinel, a watchtower of sorts, a place from where we can survey the sprawling complex. The night shifts are long, and to keep ourselves entertained, we often watch TV on the computers. One such night, my partner had disappeared on one of his rounds, and I was engrossed in an old sitcom rerun. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a movement. I spun around, my heart pounding. There, standing against the window overlooking the main corridor, was a figure. I could only make out the shoulder seam of a jacket and some sort of patch. I assumed it was my partner returning from his rounds. But the door remained closed, and the figure was eerily still. A shiver of unease washed over me. I tried to shrug it off, convincing myself that it was merely a trick of the light, a product of my tired mind. With a deep breath, I turned back to the screen, my eyes straining to focus on the sitcom's storyline. Minutes passed, each one stretching out, amplifying the silence of the office. I felt a creeping sense of dread settling in. Unable to shake off the nagging feeling, I turned around again. And there it was, the jacket, the patch. A spectral figure standing against the window, seemingly watching me. As I watched, frozen in place, the patch slowly faded away and vanished into thin air. My partner didn't return for another half hour, and the figure didn't appear again. But the image of that phantom jacket, that vanishing patch, was etched into my mind. The facility has its quirks, one of which we affectionately refer to as ghost traffic. The entire complex is rigged with surveillance cameras, monitoring both the inner and outer perimeters. We can see every truck entering and leaving, and hear the rumbling engines and the screeching brakes. But sometimes, we hear a truck that isn't there. The sound rumbles past our office, but no truck ever appears. Nothing on the cameras, nothing at the guard shack. No traces of any vehicle, just the lingering echo of a phantom truck, adding another layer to the enigma of the facility. In the quiet solitude of the night, as the echoes of unseen trucks fill the air and spectral figures make their appearance, the facility takes on a life of its own. As I sit in our office, watching sitcom reruns and keeping an eye on the cameras, I can't shake off the feeling that we're not alone. And I can't help but wonder, what untold stories do these age-old walls and corridors hold? What ghosts of the past linger in these empty halls? I continue to carry out my duty, but the specter of the patch and jacket, the phantom trucks, they are constant reminders that the past is never really past, and sometimes it leaves a shadow that continues to haunt the present. I used to work in a nursing home that was built ages ago, and they still had the old part of the building at the back. The structure was a patchwork of old and new, with the original, aged edifice quietly residing at the back, a silent testament to the passage of time. Night shifts were a solitary affair, with the silence and darkness punctuated only by the occasional sigh or mumble of the elderly residents in their sleep. On this particular night, however, I was joined by a fellow staffer. The sense of unease that usually permeated the night shift seemed somewhat quelled by our shared presence, a small comfort against the vast expanse of night. We found ourselves on the balcony overlooking the ancient part of the facility, our soft chatter mingling with the whispers of the wind. The glow of our cigarettes was a small beacon against the engulfing darkness, an ember of warmth in the chilling night. As the smoke danced upwards into the night sky, we were interrupted by an unnatural sound. Behind us, the automatic doors, which required a coded sequence to open, creaked open. A cold breeze swept in, carrying with it a sense of foreboding. Turning around, we were met with the sight of the yawning, empty doorway. As if on cue, a voice called out, a spectral sound that seemed to echo from nowhere and everywhere at once. Fear gnawed at me, but duty beckoned. I ventured into the depths of the nursing home, my heart pounding in sync with my echoing footsteps. Every room I checked was as it should be. The residents were peacefully asleep, oblivious to the mysterious voice. With no source of the eerie sound to be found, I returned to the balcony, the chilling mystery still hanging in the air. But the night was far from over. As my fellow staff member and I resumed our conversation, an unearthly phenomenon unfolded before us. The automatic door, our only link to the interior of the nursing home, began to fog over, turning into an opaque barrier between us and the rest of the world. The lights in the old building began to flicker sporadically. A chaotic light shows against the backdrop of the night. The curtains within danced wildly as if caught in a gale, their frantic movement visible through the intermittent illumination of the flickering lights. We were both frozen in place, our bodies rigid with fear. The cigarette smoke hung thick in the air around us, forgotten embers smoldering out. A shadow began its slow procession across the old building, moving through the windows in a surreal parade. It traveled from one end of the building to the other, its progress marked by the flickering lights. Suddenly, a loud bang resonated through the night air, a sonic punctuation that seemed to seal the eerie sequence. The light snapped off, plunging the old building back into darkness. The fog on the automatic door began to dissipate, revealing the now quiet and still interior of the nursing home. While the spectacle we witnessed was chilling, the night held one more grim surprise. In the early hours of the morning, 3 of our residents passed away. One death we had been expecting, the inexorable march of time and disease leading to an inevitable end. But the other 2 were abrupt, unexpected. Despite our familiarity with death in our line of work, the shock of these sudden departures was a harsh blow. That night forever imprinted itself on my memory, a chilling reminder of the inexplicable and mysterious. It was a testament to the unseen and the unexplained, a spectral smoke that refused to be contained within the pipe of disbelief. Even now, the memory sends a shiver down my spine, a ghostly echo of a night filled with fear and loss.